that looks cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I'm interested in, who of you two started this whole thing? Who influenced?
He
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
You found a book, or you went to a talk, or how did it come about?
What are you referring to?
To this thing you thought, wow, I have to.
I was searching for 18 years before I found my teacher. I had an awakening in 1971 when I was a federal fugitive during the Vietnam War, and I had to face death. And I woke up. I didn't know what enlightenment was. In 1971, where I was living in Colorado, there were no spiritual teachers. There was just books, and I didn't know anything. But I woke up and I knew that if everyone could realize what I realized, the world would come to peace, that the genocide would stop, the madness would stop. And so I went off on a search for a teacher who could help me transmit that. And it took 18 years to find my teacher.
And the teacher was?
The teacher is Papaji. Still is.
Yeah.
Yes. And when I found him and walked in his room, I sat on his bed with him, and immediately my mind stopped, and I knew I was in the living presence of a true Satguru, and everything stopped. My world came to an end, and something fresh, unknown.
You already met each other before that, or?
Yes, we had met in 1976, and Eli was already on his spiritual search, and I was just searching for a man. I wanted the right relationship. I thought that would give me happiness. Relative to our prior conversation, that my problem was that I didn't have the right man. And I fell in love with Eli, but Eli was actually more in love with truth and the search for truth than he was with me. And at first I didn't like that, but I soon recognized that actually was what I was in love with.
So there was no competition for you. You thought, well, he
Only
loves the Guru more than me.
Yeah, well, that's before we met Papaji, and then Eli did meet Papaji first, and then he came and got me, and we both fell in love with Papaji.
Okay.
Should we tell him to
Yeah.
stop?
So, you say Papaji, a true Satguru.
Yes.
How can I recognize the difference between a phony one and the real thing? Between Pepsi and Coca-Cola?
Well, Papaji was once asked, why are there so many false teachers? And he said, because there are so many false seekers and everybody needs a guru. So you only know from your own heart, you can't know from your mind. So when something happens and your mind stops and you know you're in the presence of something beyond what you've ever known before, you stop.
Yeah.
And then you discover, you realize.
You check it out. I mean, Papaji used to say, check it out, investigate. But first it has to be a matter of the heart, or otherwise it's just conceptual.
So it's no search for more intelligence about the subject, or...
Actually, the guru is the embodiment of intelligence. True wisdom. And when your mind stops, you realize where intelligence is. You realize the source of intelligence. And then everything flows from that. So you can't check your mind to say, is this right, or should I, or shouldn't I? That conversation's long gone.
So it's immediate recognition of trueness, no falseness. Or
yes, it was for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like some people are called guru hoppers, who go from one guru to the other to the other. You say that's fine until if you meet the right one, you start hopping around. Or
yeah. Well, I think that you have to search until you find the right one, but if it then gets uncomfortable, which it can get quite uncomfortable, and you just escape that and begin hopping again, then that's spiritual promiscuity, and it's finally hollow, and you lose an opportunity for the deepest commitment of a lifetime.
I had many teachers along the way, beautiful teachers, gurus, a Taoist master, Buddhists, and I was with them, but they didn't bring me to the end. They didn't bring me to a silent mind. Moments my mind would become silent, but it never lasted. And so I was looking for the true teacher that can cut the egoic mind. Because when we were working together, before we met our teacher, Or when I was training therapists or working in therapy, there would be moments when the mind would stop. You walk into a room, you walk in to lead a group, your mind stops quite naturally because it's not about me, it's about what's showing up here.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy, same thing. It's not about me and my story, it's about you. So the mind stops. But then as soon as we would leave the room, we'd pick up our shoes and our stories and we'd start our same old again. And so that's what we wanted, something that could cut that level of the egoic mind.
So should you get rid of the old shoes and jacket, throw them away, or keep them for rainy days, or?
You throw everything away for a moment. You lose everything and discover what cannot be lost. And then, even if you're wearing old shoes, they're enlivened by that.
Yeah.
So old roles can come in. Nothing has to change in form, and that's what shoes and roles are. But the discovery of what is unchangeable overflows into everything, into every role.
So the mind is not the enemy.
That's right.
How can, there's no enemy. There is no enemy. There's only yourself here. And it's all in how you relate with yourself. If you believe you are this mind and you follow your thoughts, you suffer. You miss. But in the moment that you stop, you're still here. Everything that's here is always here. No enemies. It's all mirrors. It's like a little parakeet that sees its reflection in the mirror and fights with it and pecks with it.
Yeah, it's a great translation. But could you say, like, if I put my attention out there, that's the fastest way to get out of the mind, or no?
Fastest way is to put your attention in here.
In here.
Yes.
But we
to forget out there. Actually, out there doesn't exist. It's made up. We know that now from science, the way the mind creates a map of reality based on the light waves that hit the retina and the sound waves, but we're not actually seeing that, we're not actually hearing that, we're making a map of it. We're describing it to ourselves, we're talking to ourselves. So that's all the outside, and that's what we call reality. When you're willing to turn away from what you think is real, you find where reality is. And reality is turning away from everything you think is real to find what is real. And that's inside.
But can that reality be described? Can you give a description of that reality so we know for sure that, hey, I got the right reality?
Yeah, as soon as you know that, that's the wrong one.
Yeah?
If it can be described,
That's not it.
it's limited in some way. And so we fail at describing it. I remember once Papaji saying, yes, you have to speak this. And I said, but it can't be spoken. He said, that's right. It can't be spoken, and you have to speak it. So in that way, the mind is turned toward something that is bigger than it. And that, to me, is the result of great art and music and just surrendering the mind to something bigger, but never assuming that you've actually finished the conversation or made the description.
It's like a fish that suddenly wakes up and realizes I'm in the ocean and tries to carry the ocean home with it.
That's a big job to do, yeah. But I haven't heard you use the word love. The four-letter word everybody is what I see here. Is love something that comes with it, or is love the ultimate, or?
Love is the ground of being.
Love is life.
So life and love are the same.
Yes.
Yes.
In Satchidananda, it's a Sanskrit phrase that to me says what can't be said. And that's consciousness awake to itself as being, and then overflowing in the love of that, the ananda of that. It's a natural state.
That's the definition of self in Sanskrit, Satchidananda.
So Sat is true?
Sat is actually being.
Being.
Chit is empty intelligence. Ananda is the bliss of love. It gets translated as bliss, but that's really not right. You know, bliss is
joy.
It's the overflowing of love itself.
Yes.
But you could say life can be nasty sometimes.
Yes.
People get murdered, people get hurt, animals eating animals, people shooting people.
Life is suffering.
Those are the life events. And those, as we were saying earlier, they're horrible events that happen in life, and they're blissful, beautiful, sublime events. But the source of all events is the Satchidananda, and that's the mystery.
the embracing love, that also...
Not just embracing love, it's the love that is the source for killing and mayhem and madness. It's the source of all form.
Mhm.
So all form is informed by it.
All form is informed by it.
Yes.
It's such a mystery, you know, because I never would want to trivialize killing and say, oh, it's all perfect, or it doesn't really happen. They are horrific things that are beyond our capacity to comprehend, and yet in our willingness to directly experience what is at the source, we find this life that is love and aware of itself.
And then that gets put into the service of the end of suffering.
Mm.
So that, yes, there's suffering in the world, there's pain in the world, and that can stop at least where you are. You stop and there's one less spot of suffering on Mother Earth. Man, there's one more potential, there's one more light, there's one more shining, and that's what gets passed on. That's how this will change the world.
Spacious mind.
Spacious mind, heart to heart.
So, does it ever bore you talking about this subject? No?
What could be better?
It's beautiful. Although I wouldn't say we talk about the subject so much. We have interviews and we have meetings, but when we're just together, it's the unspoken reality.
Yeah.
I mean, when we first got together and we just discovered Papaji, or even earlier than that when we were discovering Buddhism or Taoism, we talked about it a lot because it was so new and so radical and such a shift for the mind. And that's a stage. But it's really living from it. And it is never boring. It's not always pleasant. It's not always anything. But it is never boring.
It's being yourself. So, to be yourself, without knowing what that's going to look like or how that's going to turn out, it's fresh. Boring is predictable. Boring is the idea of yourself. Boring is the idea of the world, the idea of what I should do, what I'm supposed to do, the burden of life. All of that is boring.
Or the hope that it'll be a good party.
Yeah, we talked really. So, but when you're fully being yourself,
First you have to know yourself.
I first have to know myself. And you don't refer to the mind-made self, the thing you think you are, the image you have of yourself.
That's beautiful. The image you have of yourself is like if you look in the mirror and it looks like there's somebody in there. And they move, and they're alive, they smile, they talk. But if you try to make contact and try to actually get something alive in there, there's nothing in there.
No.
It's exactly what you're calling myself.
The image.
It's an image.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's empty. It's an illusion. And as long as we live in illusion, we're living in suffering. But when you know yourself, then you can be yourself.
You can discover the source of that illusion, the source of that image. Because it's not separate from the image or the illusion, but it is prior, before, and images change according to the mirror, but the source remains.
I once heard the comparison with like you're on a great holiday and a great island with beautiful weather, beautiful sea, and you're just sitting there watching the photos of the vacation and not enjoying the whole atmosphere, but just
People do that. People spend their whole vacation taking
pictures. Yeah.
I see that a lot.
But what is that? Is that like trying to capture?
Yes,
I think
the
so.
mind is always trying to capture a better experience, a new experience, a different, a better, and then trying to store it so it'll make me happy. So I miss being happy in this moment because I'm too busy taking a picture that I will then show to somebody else to make me happy.
To prove that I was happy.
Yeah, with the Facebook generation, that almost the most important thing on your vacation is
Pictures.
the pictures you can put on the internet. So everybody puts a thumbs up and says, "Great."
You had a good vacation.
Yeah.
You had a good life.
Yeah, that's it.
But is that what we're trying to do to satisfy that image, or to reinforce that image, or to make that image happy, or what's the thing we're trying to do?
We start trying to do that. We believe we are the image, and if we can just perfect the image or the concept of who we are. But as we mature, we recognize that no matter how perfect it may seem in a moment of success or love, getting what is wanted, that's not lasting. And there's a deeper yearning that then comes forth for what is lasting, what is truth. And that to me is when one is ready to really grow up.
That's spiritual ripeness. Spiritual ripeness, when you're willing to put down your childhood toys. Because most people never grow up. Most are just big babies. Doing the same things that you did when you were a teenager, or trying to do better, it's all based on a past projected into a future, and that's egoic suffering. But as Gangaji said, the possibility to find the source, to find what's real. And that's the ripeness, is when you realize, I've done this so many times, it doesn't work, it doesn't last. You know? How many great dinners do you have to have? How many sunsets? How many vacations to realize this is a moment, it's going to end, and it's not going to bring me lasting happiness.
You can be loving the moment, but you're not relying on the moment to deliver what that moment is already appearing in.
Because freedom is causeless. You can't make it, you can't create it, you can't co-create it, you can't project it, you can't visualize it.
You can't lose it.
You can't lose it, you can't forget it, you can't make it. It's causeless. And as causeless, that means there's no exterior cause that can make freedom or lose freedom. Freedom is prior to cause. And joy is prior to cause. Happiness comes and goes with the events. But the joy that's prior to it all, that's what is the good news for all of us.
That's who you are.
Great stuff we're talking about. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between joy and happiness? For some people, they think, well, it's the same. Happy, happy, joy, joy.
No, they can overlap. I mean, happy, you can be so ecstatically happy that you, in that moment, recognize the very joy of your being. But if you link that moment up to a cause, that's because we met, or because I was in a particular place, or something happened to me, then it's already doomed to birth and death. And the joy that we're speaking of is what is always present. And it's not necessarily always a joy. It can be very quiet and sober. It's just the joy to be. I am. That's what a mystery that is, and the wonder. So joy and wonder are very similar in my...
Is it more like an enjoyment of everything, or?
That's more like a pleasure. Okay, so there's pleasure, and pleasure can bring you some happiness, but when it doesn't last. It always ends. And so what Gangaji is speaking of is what can't be caused, and therefore it isn't lost, and doesn't depend on the particular state you're in. So
that's it.
You know, we're traveling. It wasn't a pleasant thing to fly. We don't like flying, and we don't like the airplanes and the situation, whatever it is. But that's a circumstance that kind of arises and falls on the ground of being. The ground of being doesn't change.
It doesn't hurt your joy.
It doesn't touch anything.
But it's not joy the way joy is normally.
It's not a happy
defined.
face.
Yeah, it's not like we were like, oh, this is joyous.
So you're not like, oh, a delay, great, thank you for this. No.
And some people may be like that, and that's a possibility, but it's not our particular experience.
Yeah.
Just that the joy is still the presence of beingness.
But when you say to Eli, you bring me joy, which you do you refer to?
And then I'm probably saying you bring me pleasure.
Okay.
And I'm appreciating that. It's one of the gifts of sensory being.
So this we're talking about, is it something, it's not something you can give to one another?
Right.
It's something you can not even share?
You can catch it though.
Catch it.
Catch it.
It's
catchy.
It's
contagious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're catching it.
Yeah, you can see. I sometimes get goosebumps in these interviews. Yeah.
We're always transmitting something.
Yeah, I heard you talk about that before. Yeah.
Yes, and so this is catchable. This is the way we're actually communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Because we know from science that we don't have hard edges. Everything's energetically bleeding, and we're all in each other's energetic soup all the time. And so mostly what we call friends are the ones that are at our valence and willing to share our experiences, and we share their experiences, so we stay in a certain vibration together. And when but that's so superficial. This is where there's a depth of being that can be communicated. When all that's out of the way, then that can even be there. but it's not an obscuration to what's already flowing.
Yeah, I sometimes experience with the best friends. They say, "Oh, I can be myself with you."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
that's right.
You don't mind if I wear this old
Yes.
T-shirt I have on for 10 years, or I put my feet on your couch up.
Yes.
It's all good.
Because it's something deeper than that.
Yes, nothing to do with behavior.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So when people are watching and seeing the two of you sit together, you've been together for
35 years?
35 years.
1976.
You still look like you just catched each other at the Vondel Park a couple of hours ago.
We really like Vondel Park.
We love Vondel Park. But, we've gone through it all. And, from the 70s, the 80s, this is, we went through every possible permutation.
In our lifetime.
In our lifetime,
Yeah.
how a relationship could be. We've had open relationship, we've had not an open relationship.
We've split up, we've gotten back together. Relationship is not usually linear. It has cycles and transformations and revelations.
But the beautiful thing is our relationship wasn't based on looks, wasn't based on superficial. It's like when I met Gangaji, I told her, "You're the brightest manifestation of light I've ever seen." And I still feel that way. It's still my experience. And so I fell in love with her soul. I fell in love with the depth of her integrity. I fell in love with her beautiful clarity and intention and willingness. And that's still here. And so that's our relationship is based on that ground.
And then our personalities sort of followed behind that, and
fought with that.
Yeah, because we both have strong personalities and different agendas as personalities, but
we both like being in charge.
Yeah, but the basis was this mystery of love and recognition from the beginning. Very lucky that way.
So we lived together for 13 years before we got married, and we got married in a cave in Haleakala crater in Maui, and it was a mysterious thing, the way the ceremony happened, and we just spontaneously spoke our own vows, and our vows were that as long as this relationship serves truth, then we're in it, and when the relationship no longer serves truth and our own awakening, then the relationship is over.
And with truth, you don't mean telling each other everything?
No.
You mean the deep, profound sense of...
Yes, the truth of who one is. And we hadn't met Papaji at that time, and so we were really focused on discovering that truth. We were committed seekers, and it was only, I think, 2 years after that we met Papaji and discovered what we were looking for.
Could you translate what the vows you just said in as long as I can be myself? Or
no, because the thing is, as long as I can be myself is the ego's idea of myself.
Doing what I want to do.
Doing what I want to do. It's not that at all. That all has to be sacrificed. That's all up for grabs. That gets cuddled at the negotiating table.
And really, we didn't know what form it would take. We just knew. We knew that we didn't know, and we knew that the relationship could only have meaning if it was serving the awakening
That's what it was.
of each other and all beings.
Should every relationship have that purpose? No. But are we looking for... I sometimes think people say relationships are your biggest teachers. They
It can be.
I blame you of this and that, but it's in me.
That's right. Any two animals in a box are going to have to learn how to deal with it. And that's going to be a teacher for you.
We have internal relationships too, we have the relationship of ourselves as a spiritual seeker, as a worker, as a husband, as a wife, a child. And it's if those relationships, our inner relationships, our outer relationships, are in service to truth, then finally they're all burnt up in the service.
And I said in service of truth, but let's say in service of awakening.
Yes.
That would make it's cleaner. Because there's always my truth versus your truth, and I need to tell you it's none of that. It's not that level. So, in service of awakening, which is actually, I think, more accurate with what we actually said our vows were, in service of each other's awakening.
But to me, it seems that both of you are awakened. Could you say the relationship has burned up? The tool has gone? What's then still the reason to...
That wasn't the reason for the relationship.
No.
The reason for the relationship was love.
Yeah.
But as long as the relationship served the awakening, it could stay. And it still serves the way. It serves in it, whatever it does. It's deeper than that.
We've tried to get out of this relationship at different times.
Both
He'll try
us.
to get out,
Yeah.
I'll try to get out. And something so powerful just brings us back together. And finally there's a surrender to that. It's a surrender to love.
Yeah, surrender to love.
Not needing the other to conform to any idea of how that is served, but just recognizing it is served.
Because we don't fit each other's models mentally, or we don't. This isn't when Gangaji was looking for the ideal man. This is not what it was.
Isn't that what was on the...
Not the list. I
No?
didn't fit any of the
Which
criteria.
shows you how useless those lists are.
And I didn't want an ideal woman. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was very happy being on my own. I've been a spiritual seeker on my own for years, and it was fun. I loved my mission. I loved my life. I wasn't interested in family. I never wanted babies. I didn't want to settle down. I didn't want a career. And so I wasn't looking for that at all. This was like something I avoided, I fought against. We lived together for 13 years before we got married. Because why? What's the point? But the greatest gift, it was the greatest gift that the goddess ever gave me, was this goddess in form that could be partners, tame me.
It's a mystery. Relationship, everything is a mystery.
So all those sites with parship.nl and relationcommunity.nl where people fill in all the ideal partner, you say...
That's all animal husbandry.
Well,
Duh?
Animal husbandry.
you
You
know,
take care of the chickens, you take care of the goats, you take care of the humans.
we search for connection, and that's true of us as human animals, because connection is protection, so it's for our survival. And it's part of the richness of life, is feeling seen and sharing good times and bad times. But at a deeper level, that connection must be found alone. And so even though we have been in relationship, and our relationship has definitely served each other's deepening awakening, each of us knows without a doubt that we are individually responsible for our particular version of reality, and we have to meet that and sink deeper into it, and that's the way we've served each other too.
So when I went off to find my teacher, I was 43 years old, and Gangaji thought I was having a midlife crisis, because I had to leave everything behind and go off. I didn't know who I was going to find or where I was going to go, but I knew I was being called. I had to go find my teacher, and so I had to do that alone.
I was wrong. And it's great to be wrong, because then he came back and got me, and took me to meet Papaji as well.
So nothing wrong to be wrong.
It's to be expected.
It's useful. It's how we learn.
We have to be willing to make mistakes, because that is the way, as life form, and as human life form, animal life form, that we learn. We know that. We see children, toddlers falling and getting up, but somehow when we reach the big babyhood, or what we think is adulthood, we start to withdraw from mistakes, and so our life gets smaller. So even with Papaji, I met him and I fell in love with him, and I recognized this is my teacher that I've been praying for, and I was having incredible experiences, but there was a moment that arose in me that was telling me this is a mistake, and it was a shock. And it came with it some of my old Christian conditioning that I thought I had left way behind, but it just got stirred up. And there was a crucial crossroads where I had to be willing, if this was a mistake, to discover it's a mistake. But I had to trust my experience. And in that's the freedom of growing up, the freedom of being an adult, rather than the slavery of being what we think is grown up, what we think, even what we think freedom is.
So just start taking risks.
Yes,
You
why
can
not?
take risks or don't take risks. Find yourself first.
That's a risk.
That's the risk. That's the ultimate risk. Because to find yourself, you have to be willing to die to everything you think you are. That's terrifying. That's a huge risk. That's taking a step off the known into the abyss of the unknown. That's the biggest risk. And if you take that step, everything else will follow quite naturally. Otherwise, taking risks means, well, you can go bungee cord jumping or jump out of planes or whatever it is. It brings you a high for a moment, but it doesn't last. Like great athletes get into the zone where they're they've transcended their ego, they've transcended their mind, and something else takes over. But it only lasts for a moment, and then it's gone. So this, you take the ultimate risk once and for all. You commit yourself, in this moment I must be free, no matter what. And you dive into the unknown. And everything else will take care of itself, risks or not.
So last question, the final big question. When do I know when I'm ready to take the big leap, the risk, to die?
Right now.
Right now.
Yes.
No more excuses.
That's it.
And the final excuse is the discussion of it.
The question I'm right now asking.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just, okay.
It's hope in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
So great.
Really
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Totally real.
Yeah.